today it all happened, Wade, and again, it's not perfect at the moment, but they're getting there, and we've come so far. You know, this need, this requirement, this deficit that we have had in the past on King Island, in the middle of Bass Strait, with our telecommunications, both voice communications as well as data comms, has inhibited the growth and held King Island back, basically, as far as I was concerned. You know, I look at those beautiful kids from the school in there, you know, today, and their futures are going to be touched by the ability to connect to the outside world. And you know, I've talked to many farmers over here with the absolutely terrible conditions we've had over, you know, the last few months with the dry. My heart goes out to all those on the land, and I really mean that. There's a lot of people, and I know my own community on the northwest coast of Tassie, our farming community. We've provided as much hay and silage as we possibly have. You know, I want the farmers over here to realise that there are a lot of people that think the world of them and are standing by them and are doing as much as they possibly can.
As we are in the farming now and away from the Telstra bit, and we can come back to that, of course. Talking about farming, we spoke when you were here at the show and how difficult everything was for the farmers. What we hear from farmers a lot now is, when are we finally going to get that triangular service that we can also do business with mainland Australia? And that's a battle, isn't it?
It's a battle, but you know, the negotiations I've had with the State Minister, and that minister's since changed, but was Minister Jo Palmer. She's bent over backwards trying to provide the service. We've got to get cattle off the island. We've got to get store cattle to the mainland. We've got to get feed onto the island. She really has done a fantastic job, as far as I'm concerned, in facilitating that. It hasn't been perfect, and it never will. I hear the arguments about a triangular service. I also hear the arguments about a triangular fronted boat. Let's get through this crisis first. Let's get that. I mean, we've since put an extra sailing of the John Dygan, the Tasports GBE sponsored vessel. That's doing an extra load of store cattle into the mainland, as well as loads of store cattle into Devonport. I've liaised with Pages Transport. They're spelling a lot of cattle at Carrick at their facility there, and then going on B-double either via Sea Roads or Sea Roads Luket, Sea Roads Mersey, out of Devonport, or by the Spirit into Port Melbourne or Geelong, and then on to greener pastures on the mainland. So that side of it's been instigated and is working. The passage of information hasn't been there from the start. So initially, when we've put that extra sailing of the John Dygan, there was reports back to the Minister that vessel left only half full. Now, I know, blokes, I've talked to farmers this morning. They could have filled that vessel completely from their own cattle every day for the next 3 months. So it wasn't the fact that it left because there weren't the cattle, there weren't the requirement. They left because they didn't understand, or they didn't hear the message, and we've since rectified that. I fed that back to the Minister. But we've got to get feed onto the island as well, and you know, we're even working with, I mean, as far as Huon Aquaculture down south, trying to get a vessel from there, a barge from there that can bring fodder over to the mainland.
Well, we got the Lions doing a lot of good
and
work.
They've done a fantastic job, and you know, I spoke to Rob Benson the other day, Rob Batchelor, in relation to the Lions' contribution, and I thanked him, and I know that there are many on the island that want to pass that congratulations, that thanks, and that sincere appreciation onto the likes of the Lions Club. But we can't expect the Lions Club to do that by themselves either, you know. And I'm into the Federal Minister about trying to get some freight dispensation from, say, Melbourne, because of the double handling and the $1,710 one-way Tasmanian freight equalisation scheme. That's only paid one leg. So that's all right to get that product into Devonport, but then we've then got to get it onto the the John Digan and then back into Grassy again. That's not covered by the 1710. And that is cost prohibitive, and that's the most expensive piece of water in that leg.
Well, maybe a good reminder to think back of Highway Number 1.
Yeah, 100%, Wade, and I've reminded him right between the eyes as hard as I could go. So I'll continue to remind him of that because we can't expect the Lions Club, as good as they are, we can't expect farmers on mainland Tasmania, as good as they are, to foot the bill for out-of-pocket costs.
Well, the hardest time is yet to come, isn't it? With winter coming, nothing growing.
Yep. And ground temperature's going to cool. I mean, Anzac Day is normally the cusp. I'm a farmer myself. Normally Anzac Day, when the weather turns, you start putting the coat on, the ground temperature cools off, and then even if it does rain then, well, it's not going to rain grass either. So we're going to see sometime, the colder it is, the longer that grass is going to take. We won't have the winter wedge, what we call the feed wedge, going into winter. Haven't got the reserves of hay and silage that we ordinarily would have. So we've got to be careful going forward. And then even further forward than that, we've got to breed cattle, because once it does rain, we're going to have to move those cattle back again. You get what I'm saying? So it's a fine balance, and that strategic over the horizon view is what we need to have a calm head at the moment. And I appreciate the feedback, and the amount of people that ring me, Wade, from over here, I'm humbled by it. Let me know. Let me assure you and all of those folk that I do get back to you if I don't answer the phone straight away, and I do something about it. And I don't want you to feel alone here.
But as we say, as you mentioned, Anzac Day, the last thing we want to hear when it comes to King Island beef, lest we forget, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you're dead right. And getting back to the communication side of it again, that's another case. Why did King Island get to the stage that it was with telecommunications? Why couldn't you pick the phone up in Wickham and talk to Curry? People have forgotten about the need here. And the issue that I had initially finding that money from the federal government, we're talking nearly a $10 million, $9.8 million project that was a trilateral investment between, it was 913, I think, from 914,000, almost $1 million out of local ratepayers. Well, there isn't that many local ratepayers over here to contribute that amount of money. It's an incredible contribution. And then we had to make sure that the state government contributed, and then the federal government, and I was involved heavily in that. But together, I think we've probably put in a system that is a hell of a lot more robust than what it was, more reliability, more redundancy, and you look at those kids in there from the high school, they need to have confidence that when they turn that screen on, when they press Zoom, then that connectivity is going to be there, and that there's someone on the other end. And that reliability, and as an ex-military communicator, if we don't have the confidence in our systems to know that when we press that press to talk switch and we can get our message across, it's an awful feeling. And that isolation is a terrible thing, particularly in a place like King Island. And if I could combine what I said about the situation with the dry, with our stock, and I know from a farmer's perspective how connected and how we feel when our animals are suffering. I don't want people to feel isolated, right? Either isolated from support or isolated in terms of clinical communications. So pick the phone up. If you're feeling the pressure or you need somebody to talk to, then there are people available to help you, and that's why that connectivity, both from a support measure as well as a communications perspective, is so important. It really is.